This is Eddie Nalen of the 2-Bit Players. I have some sad news for you. In an attempt to derail this internet radio show, the amazing Prezzini brothers stole the fourth reel of the show. In the misguided notion that if they were to simply remove the part of the store where Priz found their hideout, they would be hidden. They were wrong. Our hero, when we had left him, had decided to get Dillinger's penis so that he could barter with it for information with the Whitechapel Club of Chicago journalists. Then, off to the Whitechapel Club, where in a meeting with Seymour Spirko, the head, he got what he was looking for. And a good joke, too. At one point, Spirko balked at the amount of information Priz wanted in exchange for a mere 2 inches of Dillinger. Priz replied, well, it was 2 inches in 1933. Just imagine how big it would be with inflation. Ha ha! Priz learned that the murder castle of H.H. Holmes, Devil of the World's Fair of 1893, had been rebuilt in Inglewood. He concluded that that's where the Prezzini brothers were hiding the Alderbodies, and he raced off to Inglewood to meet his destiny. And now, we continue.
I made my way back to my office with a lot on my mind. I put together my usual investigation kit: super glue, my best fedora with hidden switchblade, a copy of the U.S. Constitution, and my trusty metal mallet. You can never know when a good mallet will come in handy. Oh, and my trusty .38. Like Saul Bellow used to say, no sane person goes around Chicago without protection. I sat and thought about things for a little bit, and I figured that the only thing that didn't expect was that University of Chicago type to go blazing in without all the facts. Hell, they probably expected me to chase after them for a bit, going after closed door and dead ends while their trap ensnared me. No time for that. My only option was to go in half-cocked, devils and demons be damned. I waited another hour before I made my move, to get in there a half hour before Spirko's troops were due. On a hunch, I gave Sophia a call. I'd need friends, and she was as close to one as I had in this town. She agreed to come as well, and after I finished another cup of rye and coffee, I felt pretty good about my odds. The murder castle was located a few miles west off my office in Hyde Park, in what had turned into one of the toughest neighborhoods in Chicago. Newscasters will tell you that it isn't safe to drive through Englewood neighborhood, but what do they know? I walked, and trouble stayed clear of me. A white man walking through that neighborhood at sunset, wearing a trench coat, is either a cop or looking for trouble, and goddammit, I was looking for trouble. Englewood had seen better days. Hell, most of the buildings that were standing were concrete homes that had built around the same time as the murder castle. I was a little scared that I might miss the place, but there was no missing the joint once I got to it. Sure, it was made of the same material as the other houses, but it was shiny and new. The rest of the buildings on 61st Street had boarded-up windows, fire scars and decayed, not the murder castle. The windows were clean, the concrete was new, and it looked open for business, with a little sign that said, Holmes Pharmacy. The rest of the neighborhood had people, but this place was like a black hole. Anything that came near must have never come out again. It was a 3-story building occupying half a city block, with empty lots on all sides of it. Large glass windows with their window shades drawn on the first floor, with light peeking out the corner of the windows. A sign on the pharmacy door said open, so I decided to stroll right in. What did I have to fear? A myth? When I walked in, it looked like the old pharmacy display of the Surgical Museum on Lakeshore Drive. 1,000 different herbs and snake oils were stored away in old wooden drawers lining a wall, while a glass counter snaked around 3/4 of the room. Beyond that counter was the grinning, almost leering Hippini Prezzini. He was dressed in a chartreuse-colored Chinese shirt, with curly blonde hair streaming off his head like the snakes of Medusa, and a cream pie in front of him on the counter. He raised his eyebrows at me, rubbed his belly, and frowned. He pointed at a bottle labeled XXX Poison and leered at me again. When I didn't flinch, he stuck his tongue out and pantomimed hitting himself in the head, which must have been quite amusing to him, because he burst into silent laughter. Then he pointed at the counter, and he pointed at me as he mimicked a hanging. I shook my head and drew my .38. His mouth opened in a guffaw, but but no sound came as I shouted, "Stick your hands up, boy!" He put his hands into a jar of honey and smiled as he showed me his sticky fingers. He gave me a goofy smile and pulled a banana out of his pocket to match my gun. I looked at him cockeyed, and he nodded in response. He unpeeled the banana and ate it with one bite, throwing the peel to the floor. He winked at me and started to walk away until he slipped on his own banana peel. I moved in to apprehend him, and he belched at me, but a bullet came flying in my direction. It went over my right shoulder and shattered a jar behind me. That was it for me. I'd had enough of these goddamn so-called Brazzini brothers. Maybe I was just sick of their jokes, or maybe I wanted to see if they really were spirits of chaos. My gun spat out 2 bursts of flame, and they struck Capini in the chest. He recoiled back, raised his arms to heaven while screaming without making a sound, before falling on the counter, and was still. I made my way behind the counter and was getting ready to open the door behind it when I heard a bicycle horn squeak from Apini's body. I went back to the body and searched him. Sure enough, in his right hand was the horn. Must have been rigor mortis. I took it away from him, put it in my trench coat's inner pocket, and went back to the door. I reached for the handle, and I heard a bicycle bell. I checked my breast pocket, but that wasn't there. I went back to the body, thinking I must have accidentally left it there, and the horn was back in Apini's hand. I shrugged and walked back to the door, content to leave the dead man with his possession. I was about to open the door when all hell broke loose. A school bell rang from God knows where, echoing throughout the room. Apini sprang back to life, leering again at me as he danced into the center of the store. He began swaying back and forth as he raised his fist to me, expecting a boxing match. I don't have time for this, and put 3 more slugs into him. He smiled and spat out 3 chunks of lead in my direction. If that's the way he wanted it, then that's the way he was going to get it. I charged at him, and he dropped the boxing pose, running around the store. He threw a door knocker at me, then some whiteout, and a few pillows before I had him cornered. I was about to lay my mitts on him when he squirted through my legs. I dove after him, but he slipped right through my grip, and I was left panting on the floor. The bell rang again, and out popped the other 2 Brazzini brothers, from the door I had been trying to get through.
Throwing acid is wrong. In some people's eyes.
I leapt out of the way and watched the contents of the shattered glass bottle turn a concrete wall into mush. While I was diving and panting like an overweight New Yorker, Apini Brazzini sat on the ground while Cecchini massaged him.
Don't you worry. You got him on the ropes. It'll make it very convenient when we make him hang himself. Don't you worry, Apini. I'm gonna bring your lucky horseshoes just like you asked.
And he stuck a horseshoe into a boxing glove, which he stuck on Apini's right hand. The rest was a blur. The bell rang. I charged the trio. Apini slipped a right uppercut that my grandmother would have seen coming, and I was seeing stars. And I don't mean the Marx Brothers. I woke up on a floor of pillows, with my left eye swelling up bigger than Fast Polly's bank account. Maybe shooting Apini wasn't the best of ideas, but at least I knew what I was dealing with. Immortal spirits of chaos that were likely conspiring with Chicago's underbelly to, what, screw with me? Sink the city into the lake? Hell, for all I knew it was all a joke on poor Leon Dupree, to show him what he could do, and then release the Alderbodies back to undo all that he did. I woke up in an L-shaped room with 50 television sets, stacked 5 high and 10 wide, occupying one of the long walls. Next to the television was a door that led to God knows where. I checked my trench coat for my possessions, and they were all still there, with the added bonus of Apini's bicycle horn that squawked when I got up. As soon as it did, all 50 television screens lit up at once, and 50 faces of Guccini Brazzini were staring down at me. His eyebrows rose and fell a few times, and the televisions spoke.
Well, it looks like you cracked the code, deciphered the warnings, and are 100 feet away from the stolen Alderbodies. What led you here? Was it my charming personality, or a promise to boil you alive? Wait, don't answer. I've got something to show you.
And the screen shifted to images of all 37 Alderbodies, with the balance of the screen showing plans for the city. The Alderbodies appeared to be in some sort of perverse training exercise.